and welcome to the Learning Council Report podcast. I'm LeiLani Cauthen, your host and CEO of Learning Council News Media. So my title today is From Pop Culture to Classrooms, Driving Student Engagement Through Stories. So my guest today is Euan Lampitt, who's Vice President Corporate Social Responsibilities from Warner Brothers Discovery. I'm super excited to have him. Woo! And Euan leads a global team responsible for delivering social impact initiatives for all of WBD's brands and divisions worldwide. This includes partnership with Discovery Education and the development of programs like DC Superpowered Storytellers, which is going to be a central point that we're going to talk about today, which brings culturally relevant, curriculum-aligned learning experiences to students everywhere. So welcome, Euan. With the upcoming release of Supergirl this week, there's a lot of excitement around how major cultural moments can be tied to learning, storytelling, and character building for students. So before we dive into that, I just threw a lot at the listeners. Can you give me a quick overview of this ecosystem? You're with Warner Brothers Discovery. There's also DC, which people know as DC Comics, and Discovery Education. Shake that all out for me on how you guys are collaborating.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. So Warner Brothers Discovery is a global media and entertainment organization. So we have within our portfolio, we have Warner Brothers, CNN, TNT Sports, Cartoon Network, HBO, and DC as well, among many others. And so DC is one of the world's largest publisher of comic books and graphic novels. So think Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Supergirl, some really incredible and iconic characters. And Discovery Education is one of our education partners. So that we work really closely with them to develop curriculum and content for K through 12 education.
So talk to me a little bit about social impact. So this is what you're involved in. And what does that mean?
Yeah, so we're on our corporate social responsibility team. So as you mentioned, we support all of our brands, divisions, and productions worldwide. And so that's obviously a real variety of sort of content and different organizations. And we help support across a range of social environmental issues. That can be everything from employee volunteerism to disaster response to charitable contributions to philanthropy. And one of our core pillars is really about creating career pathways. And so that means for us helping place people in jobs, provide skills training. And then when we think about K through 12 education, it's really about using our content to help enrich classroom education and raise awareness of the breadth of careers that exist in entertainment that people and kids just aren't aware of.
Yeah, so it's so high in their mind, they can't imagine, breaking into it. People think it's going to be a hard industry, but it is so large, the entertainment industry. It's not just down in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's global, but also, when we speak with kids and they know about, obviously the actors, and then you think about the directors, and maybe they know about producers, but what they wouldn't know is that there are thousands of jobs that go into making these films or these TV shows or these games or these comic books come to life. And that can be, it's animators, it's the technical and craft roles. And so there is just an incredible plethora of jobs within our industry, and we're trying to just let people know if that's a pathway of interest to you. We can kind of signpost to it and build some of those core capabilities which will help kids on that pathway to that career.
That's exciting. All right, so why is it and why does this matter really in the numbers? Like, this is a big industry, but talk to me more about what the storytellers are doing.
Yeah, so the DC Superpowered Storytellers program specifically, so that's one we've sort of been going for a few years. And it's really, it's aimed at K through 12 students, and it's a creative learning initiative that really taps into DC superhero stories and characters and uses them to help young people build their creativity, build their confidence, and really develop their own voice. And so we've been partnering with Discovery Education as well as Boys and Girls Clubs of America to reach students nationwide in classrooms, in after-school clubs, and in homes, providing free curriculum-aligned activities that live within the classroom, as well as hands-on activities that help kids get excited and engaged about learning. And it actually originated in LA within the Los Angeles Unified School District as an in-person program in 2018 that was really just focused solely on sort of having kids create their own autobiographical comic books and develop storytelling skills and writing skills. And since then, we've expanded both in terms of the curriculum, but also the reach across the US. And actually, we've just launched in the UK last week. And we've now served almost 900,000 students across 3,200 schools and after-school clubs. And more than half of those participating schools are Title I. And that's, when I think about this from a social impact lens as well, that's really core to why we're doing this. It's about widening access to creative learning opportunities to those who may otherwise not have them.
That's exciting. I would love this. If I was in the classroom today, I would feel like we're bringing in the actual superheroes themselves, right? To really be part of it. And that's as a pivot point for attention, I don't think it gets any better than that. All right. So talk to me about the student experience specifically, because that's what the educators that are listening to this right now are asking themselves, like, okay, is this another program I bring in? Like, is this going to be just, what is this? So talk to
Mm.
me about that, really.
Yeah, so there's kind of three pathways when it comes to the student experience. And the first one is classroom ready lessons. So Discovery Education are just a phenomenal organization at understanding curriculum and understanding how to shape it to meet student needs. So everything we do is rooted in learning outcomes. And that's within ELA or SEL or creative expression or different sort of lesson plans. So that's the first one. The second one is these after school activities and experiences. So these are really focused on creativity. They're fun, they're flexible, they're for use in after boys and girls clubs and other community organizations. And that's really anchored in the idea that we all know that learning doesn't stop when you leave the classroom. And in fact, it becomes so important to keep kids engaged. So whether that's in the after school setting year round, but also being implemented in their summer programming. And that's to really help prevent the summer learning loss and help keep that momentum throughout the summer months. So when they come back to school, kids are really excited. And again, it's using these superheroes and these superhero stories as a way in to learning as kind of this entry point. And then the third one is careers content. So connecting classroom skills to real world pathways and raising awareness of these careers. So we created what's called a virtual field trip with Discovery Education called the Superpowered Story. And we went behind the scenes of DC headquarters in Burbank. This was about a 20-minute video accompanied by activities for teachers to watch and to do with their kids as they're watching along. And so we met the animators and the writers and the producers and really those people who bring these incredible stories to life and sort of uncovering what do these careers mean. And then also within the careers content, we also hosted our first ever DC Superpowered Storytellers Studio Day a few weeks ago, where we invited middle school students from community organizations and schools across the LA area for a day on the Warner Brothers lot. And we gave them a tour of the studio. They met with DC employees and execs and had a masterclass and really learned about these are career opportunities, as well as taking part in creative activities as well, like creating their own comic covers. Um, and when it comes to careers, one of the most rewarding things that we've heard from teachers is that over 97% of the teachers that we surveyed as part of this program reported increased student interest in career learning and taking part of this. And so when we blend together the curriculum, classroom ready lessons, the after school fun activities, and then this careers content, that's when we're seeing a really powerful combination that really helps students see themselves as creators. And I think that's a really key piece. They're not just consumers of content of these movies, they're actually excited and engaged and being these kind of active learners as well.
That's exciting. I'm envisioning that in the lessons, because you're tagging into the superhero thing, right? You're a little bit escaping as as a student and the teachers are sort of letting them go there. And because, I want to be a superhero, so do you, right? Like, so
Mhm.
it's super fun. But also because you sort of break that bond with reality for a moment and you escape into this, I could be a superhero world, it is connecting you to the future of you, right? Like what
Mhm.
I could be, right? So that's a super interesting way to just say, okay, I'm gonna unstructure your little reality for a moment and then let you structure a future, right? That's exactly the type of career connection that educators are hoping for, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of a beautiful thing. And I know that Discovery Education is very adept at the whole curriculum design thing. So it's not like the teachers are having to go, oh, I got this idea and I got to construct a thing about it now. And I build it on my own self, right? Which no one has time for anymore. I find it ridiculous that we even expect teachers to build their own lessons every time. It's like, so I find it's like a gift you've created, right? Not only bringing in these very powerful images and brands and things that you've done and taking people around more of the studios, which I've been to, by the way. It's gorgeous down there.
Oh,
Like
amazing. Yeah.
the weather is always perfect. Like, but also because Discovery then has like socked in the actual stuff that a teacher needs, right?
Mhm.
That's a beautiful thing. So, anything else you want to talk to me about, like that teacher experience side? Like, because that sounds like easy peasy. Give me it, right? Like, give that to me right now.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of the idea, is that like we know that how busy teachers are, how often under-resourced the schools and the classrooms are, and so trying to make it as turnkey, as easy as possible as it is for them. I think that's the first thing. The second thing, as you mentioned, is just making it valuable, right? Like it has to be rooted in learning. It has to make sense for them. It has to be connected to their own classroom journey, and be sort of segmented up in a way that makes sense for them as they're teaching these classes throughout the semester. And then, the other key piece that we're trying to we found really powerful is they're making it timely. So it helps teachers connect curriculum to cultural moments that students already care about. So it's really trying to, obviously we live in a really fragmented world when it comes to content and films and media and games, and there's so many different options out there, but there are still those cultural moment, those major movie releases that can help cut through. And the idea is that we can help create this curriculum where teachers, the excitement is already half of the way there when they're teaching these kids.
Yeah, well, I feel like you're right. Cultural moments are a flashpoint, right? Like if you want attention, you want to lower your absences rate, you need to have a flashpoint. Like, and something that's happening, nationwide as a cultural moment is definitely attention getting, right? It makes you think, okay, yeah, I'm part of this and I have my say and what's happening with everybody else, which is really
Mhm.
the attraction to people, right? Like
Mhm.
this is happening to everybody and I'm part of it and I have my opinion and blah, blah, blah. And I want to write my own stories about it. That's a beautiful thing. I know that Discovery probably is doing actual standards alignment too, which is what an educator wants to hear, right?
100%. Yeah. Everything
Academic
is,
standards.
yeah, exactly. And if you look at it, it's whether it's connecting to STEM. They did a great activity around the science behind superpowers. So it's like, where does imagination and superpowers end, and where does the science kind of begin? Or how society shaped comics. So looking at that interaction between history and social studies and comics as well. But everything is rooted in learning outcomes and standards. So that's incredibly important to this program.
Yeah, yeah, incredibly important. I think when I think about like the standards themselves, I mean, a company to do that, we've done a count of how many standards there are now across all 50 states and all the different subjects. It's like 2 million. Like
Mhm.
it's this majestically huge pile of potential things you have to worry about. And this is why their whole company's dedicated to this. Because if I was a teacher and I had to deal with just my grade standards across the year and the units, I'd be like, what? This is a lot of work. And I'm supposed to stand in front of a bunch of kids every day. And maybe it's not just one class, it's 7 whole units of classes. And please just take some work off my plate. So that's what you're saying that they've done, which, rigorous standards aligned stuff is gold. it's gold for these people. So exciting. I
Mhm.
like it. All right. So why Supergirl and why right now? Right. So this is a moment. It's about to happen. So anybody listening to this podcast right now, it's like, get on it. Why Supergirl? Why now?
So one is, as we mentioned, around it being a big sort of shared cultural moment, really exciting, gets people excited about it, gives teachers a way into the subject. And the other thing is that Supergirl, as a character, she really embodies perseverance, hope, bravery, courage, and she makes mistakes. I mean, she is not perfect, and she's really trying to figure out who she is and her place in the world. And I think these are really relevant themes to students. And that's really what anchors a lot of our program is. It's these values. It's how do we connect these superhero lives and these stories and these values to real world experiences. And these superhero characters, they do reflect human values. Like when we think about Batman, it's innovation and fairness. Superman, it's hope. And these heroes are not perfect and they often face complex ethical challenges. And so we sort of use that as a framework for developing the curriculum that they do so that these kids can really see themselves as superheroes and they can get their way into the learning and they can really understand um, how is this relevant to me? Like, what does this mean for me? And so that's why doing something around Supergirl has been incredibly exciting, and we feel very privileged to be able to, lean into the characters and the content, and developing activities around that.
That's nice. I feel like I should say so. Supergirl's not Perfect Girl, otherwise the movie would be renamed. Um, but the fact that then you have not just a fun thing. It's not just something fun. We're not telling educators that are listening to this podcast right now, hey, go get involved with the Supergirl stuff and the stuff discovery education and what about all you guys did, right? Because it's going to be fun for the kids and have attention. We're not saying that. We're
Hmm.
saying this is deeply resonant for a number of different reasons. All the reasons you're trying to drive, the things I even talk about with regards to human intelligence,
Mhm.
we need to up the game in the other domains because we can't just teach only math and language. We have to graduate kids who are going to compete with AI as humans. And those are character things. And those character things come out with the Supergirl story. So that's why it's a flashpoint. Am I
Mhm.
getting this right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's fine. It's just that recognition that these are human values and these are the same challenges that a lot of us face and kids face. It's like, what are the challenges I'm facing in my own life? And they can be day-to-day challenges. Like, where do I want to be? What makes me unique? What are those strengths that drive me? And it can be creative thinking, it can be compassion, it can be speed, it can be all of those things that you see in the playground or you see in the classroom that kids maybe take for granted. And I think we want them to pause and reflect and think about what it is that makes them unique. And then how do you connect that to outcomes and how do you connect that to possibilities? How do you make kids feel that they have a place in the world and they have an opportunity to do great things? And that's really what this is about.
All while you're helping the teacher attain the standards and the writing programs and the reading programs at the same time. So it's not a small pile that you put into this bucket. Okay, so then I also know that you've got some other things going on with math and science and social studies and art. So we've been talking about language learning tied in this Supergirl thing, but talk to me about those other ones.
hmm And so some of those came through the virtual field trip that we created. So, we interviewed the DC archivist, who is, his role is really to be the keeper of DC archives. He has the first ever Superman Detective Comics. He has all of this incredible kind of trivia and knowledge. And he was really helpful in again creating this how society shapes comics and looking at the parallel path between the development of whether it's DC or some of these other sort of comic publishers and what was happening in society at the same time. We also met with Lee Cree and interviewed her. She's an animator and was talking about some of the principles of design and animation and how it connected with science and maths and technology. So really trying to, things that you might assume are just things we see on the screen, but actually have connections to standards and different curriculum. And so that's been a real joy, is to, as you say, this started in English language arts, autobiographical comic books, and bringing in amazing partners like Discovery Education, but also hearing from the teachers. It's like, what are some of the subjects that they're really struggling with? What are some of those areas that maybe are a bit more dry, or that used to be really interesting for kids and maybe haven't sort of kept up with that momentum? And so how can we use that as an opportunity to create new content and curriculum that gets kids really excited and engaged in these subjects?
Yeah, I want this job, the DC archivist. This sounds like the funnest job on the
Yeah.
earth, other than taking care of puppies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're in a moment now where there's this really high absences, and it's 24% nationwide. I did another podcast with a company that is addressing this, and this is no joke. This is, weeks at a time, weeks in the course of school year, you just keep falling farther and farther behind. So I started asking, is this inattention, right? Like it's just no attention. So you're talking about using these flashpoints and the different angles that get kids into the writing and into the reflection of the design that are tying them to real world, right? Like what's happening in the movies, what's happening over here, but then you're actually addressing one of school's biggest concerns, which is they're losing kids. They got to get kids to achieve. They got to get them there, right? They got to get they got to have an entrance to the mind, right? And so what you're giving people is an entrance to the mind of youth, right? They're going through their little experience in life, and they notice these outside things happen. Oh, mom, there's a premiere, like Supergirl's coming out, blah, blah, blah. And so now there's a connection when they're in the classroom. I don't think it can get any better than that, to be honest. Um, and real challenges in education overall, like, you have lower achievement and scores are going down, and it's not good. Like, so if we're talking about now using your superpowers as a company that's putting out the idea of this, all this stuff with all the movies and everything else that you're doing, I think that it's definitely a must do.
We know that students show up. They tune in, they connect emotionally to their classroom work, and when they feel seen, they participate more fully. And so that's what we're really focused on, is creating these kind of exciting lessons that have this relevance to the students, and really using these immersive superhero stories to connect it to their own lives. So, it helps them understand, why do I need to learn this? And then when students are in, that's when the learning becomes active. And so when they really have this agency and this autonomy over creating it, so they're no longer just passive consumers or sitting in the classroom and they're saying, you need to learn this, this is information coming in here. They're the ones in the driving seat who are reflecting, they're discussing, they're solving problems, they're creating, they're designing, they're illustrating. And it's really the shift from passive consumption to active learning. And that we've seen as to be really key to student engagement.
Like anything we haven't covered, what have we not covered? What do we need to hear, like to really bring this home for people?
For me, it's really about the one-on-one connection and the one-on-one impact. So I feel incredibly proud of the scale that we've achieved, the number of students, the impact it's happening through Discovery Education and Boys and Girls Clubs nationwide. That's really fantastic. But for me, it's when I get to meet with the students one-on-one and hear about their experiences. And so when we hosted the studio day a few weeks ago, and as part of it, we had these different creativity stations, and one was around create your own comic cover. And as I sort of walked around there, there was this young, probably 11-year-old boy who was sitting there. I think I later learned he was from YMCA Burbank, and he was just kind of in his own world. He was quietly sitting there drawing. So I kind of went up and was talking to him and asking what he was doing. And as soon as I started to talk to him, he was saying, "Oh, well, this character's here, and this is his superpower, and this is the title." I was like, "Oh, great! Like, tell me more." And at that point, his whole demeanor changed. He reached into his bag and he brought out this comic book that he had been creating over the last few weeks. He was telling me all about the worlds that he'd been doing, and the stories and the backstories and the plot twists that he'd been creating. And it was just amazing to see this transformation of this young boy who had really realized the power of self-expression and the power of creativity and the way in which that can transform someone's lives. You know, he was saying about how he wanted to be an artist, comic book artist, so he was most excited there, and he'd heard from some of our execs on stage. And for me, that just, it made me appreciate the power of creativity in unlocking someone's passions and possibilities. You know, when kids have a way to express themselves, really to feel that they're being seen in their characters, that can be through talking about their own lives, or it can be through talking about their own superheroes' lives. It can really change how they see their own potential in the world. And for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
you know, working in the social impact space, that's what it's all about, hearing these personal stories of transformation.
Well, absolutely. Well, you have a superpower. I hope you know that you get to do this, right? Like everyone listening right now is like, I want to be social impact at Warner Brothers. Come on. Like that sounds like the most fun ever. Well, thank you for being with me today. This was a great topic. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Leilani. It's been great to be here.
Yeah. All right. So you've been listening to Learning Council Report podcast. I'm your host, LeiLani Cauthen. Keep listening and keep learning.